the landmark cast iron building, Greenwich Village, City of New York. Although tonight is a very special night, as well as being the night of the All-Star game, we will still start tonight as we always do. To those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. To those who have been here before, welcome home. Tonight's book, Big Red, the publisher Triumph, the co-authors Phil Pepe and Ken Griffey. Please join me as we say welcome home to Phil Pepe and welcome to Ken Griffey. Thank you, and what we're going to do a little bit different tonight, and as these gents, I think maybe they were a little surprised that we had a nice turnout in the rain the night of the All-Star game. But that's a tribute to what the clubhouse brings out. So I'm getting out of the way. This is your show tonight. We're going to have Q&A right from you. All I'm doing is holding this. Jim.
Hi, my name is Jim, and first of all, I'd like to thank Phil Pepe for so many years of great writing, great baseball writing, and informing baseball fans about the game we love. And Ken, it's a pleasure to meet you. I want to thank Ken and the entire Griffey family for giving so much to the game of baseball.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
So much.
Thank you.
Ken, the question I have is your skipper, Sparky. And Ken, I know it's in your book probably, and I'm going to read it, but what made Sparky Anderson so special as a manager and as a man?
As a manager, Sparky would not say very much. He wasn't the type who ran from rage unless he got upset at the umpires. And I think he only did that a couple of times. I didn't really see Sparky ever get mad at anyone. And he let you play. He let you go out and do your thing. My problem I had with it was that, I was young. I was the youngest one on that club, so he wasn't going to cater to me as much anyway. So, he already had the big four, Bench, Morgan, Rose, and Perez. So when he came into the league, it was, the headline said Sparky who, and no one knew who Sparky was, where he came from, and everything of that nature. But Johnny Bench told him to sit back. You sit over there, don't say anything, we'll make you a star. And that's what Sparky became. He became a big star. But as a man, he was just very proud. Very proud of what he had accomplished. Even though he didn't get to the big, I think he got to the big leagues, he hit 190 or something like that. But getting to the big leagues at that time was real tough anyway. So, but playing for him and being the person he was a joy to play for him. And like I said, I didn't talk to him very much. I stayed out of his way. I enjoyed the game, enjoyed to play the game. Being a young man, sometimes the best thing is to stay away from the manager. And that's exactly what I did.
Well, thank you.
Who's batting second?
I hit second.
I
have a question. My son Joel told me that you and your son hit back-to-back home runs?
Yep.
Only father-son ever?
Ever.
And so what's the age spread between you two?
20.
20 years.
20 years.
You were how old when that happened?
I was 40 and he was, I was 41. Nah, actually, I'll take it back. I was 40 and he was 20.
Wow.
Yeah, mine went further.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, I just had to add. I don't want him to tell everybody his went further.
That's awesome.
Well, I'll follow up since Junior was brought up. Your boy is kind of the reason why I really am still so heavily involved with this game. I was a Secret Mariners fan when I was a kid, even though I was
Secret?
Well, I'm from Michigan, so I was a Tigers fan through and through.
From Michigan?
I was Tiger fan through and through, but when I went home in my bedroom, I had a card of Ken Griffey, and it bums me out now. We see all these young kids that come off the Strouch, Harper, Machado, and all them, and to me, your son was something so completely unique and special to come out at that age, and just to dominate the way he did at that young age, how much fun he had. Do you think his legacy is to kind of always be compared now whenever there's a young person that comes out, that they're going to be the next Griffey Jr., or, where do you think he ranks as far as, being?
Well, Well, I couldn't tell you where he ranks, but I can tell you this. You know, when I came through, everyone was compared to, was good at center field, was compared to Willie Mays.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, comparisons, you have to have a comparison. Who the great players are, when you have a young kid coming up, they're always going to compare him to somebody. You know, he was compared to Willie Mays. You know, when he came. You know, now all the young kids are being compared to him. So, but that's just an honor. It's an honor for him, you know, to be compared to, or have somebody, all the sports analysts compare him, or one of the younger, outstanding, talented ball players coming up, especially center field, to be related to him. So this is good. You know, I don't mind it. I mean, you know, I lost my identity a long time. That much difference.
We're here on the night of the All-Star game. You had a few forays in that arena. Can you talk about your experiences in the All-Star game? I know one of them went very well for you.
Yeah, well, that was the last All-Star game I was in, 1980. The two before that, I think I played in 76, 77. I didn't play in the one here in New York. I was hurt when I was still on the All-Star team. But I got a chance to face Frank Fernandez in 76 against, when he was with the Angels.
Is that before you got hurt?
Yeah. And I got a base hit RBI in that game. So we won, but you know, when you're in the National League, you play the game. The All-Star game has always been played on personal pride basis, not because they want to get home field advantage in the World Series. It was, you got picked by on the All-Star team. It's personal pride that you're going to go out and beat the other team, especially Americans. So when I first came up, I think we won 11 straight, you know, All-Star teams. So I was fortunate to be at least named 3. I got to play in 2 and named in 3 of them. And then 1980 was strange. Because 1980 I was with the Reds, and it was between Dusty Baker and myself. Dusty was on the Dodgers, but Tanner, Chuck Tanner picked me to play on the All-Star team. And the strangest thing was, during that game, I think it was the third or fourth inning, he got a chance, you know, he was going to make a move, and they were bringing in Tommy John. And they were going to hit a right-hander against Tommy John. And Tommy Lasorda told Chuck Tanner, he said, Chuck, he said, if I was you, I'd hit Griffey. And Chuck said, he's not easy. Lasorda said, I've been watching him for 10 years. He was killing Tommy John. I would rather see Griffey facing than anybody else. He ended up hitting a home run and he was MVP of that game. And that's how I got in the game, was through Tommy Lasorda. He's still the Dodger manager, so he hated the Reds. But he always bled Dodger blue. I've never seen the jet. That's what he said.
You know, you mentioned sorry, Paul. You mentioned Chuck Tanner, and I had a chance to interview Chuck before he passed. And one of the things that you related to me was when you were with the Braves, how you brought Junior out, and Junior put on display as like a young kid during batting practice.
Junior was just out of high school. He just got drafted. And I took him to Atlanta. Everyone was looking at him, and they seen number 22 take the batting practice. He was hitting the ball all up in the stand, and they looked at him and said, "Hey, Ken Griffey got a little thinner, but he's tall." They didn't have any idea. They just thought I grew a little bit and got a little thinner. Less than 2 days, you know. But yeah, he came down, and Willie Stargell got the opportunity to work with him. And Willie would tell me after he worked with me, he said he'd never seen anything like how quick this kid made adjustments. And he was only 19 at that time. Well, no, I'm sorry, 17. He was 17 years old then. So he flies to Seattle. Funny part in Seattle, he gets there, they work him out in Seattle. And Dick Williams was the manager for the Mariners at that time. And Dick told Woody Woodward, he said, okay, you put him on the team now. They thought he could play. Woody Woodward had a fit because he said he hasn't even played a professional game yet. He said, that's all right. He can hit better than anybody I have on the team. He can run better and throw better. So you can put him on the team. So that was a tribute to him, too. At 17 years old, they can say he can play in the big leagues. Almost like being like Joe Johnson.
Can you talk about where you grew up and the incredible athletes who came out of the North Pennsylvania?
Donor is a little small town, just south of Pittsburgh, 30 miles south, off of 51. And let me see, at our high school, it was Stan Musial, Deacon Dan Tyler, Joe Montana, and Fred Cox. You know, football players, baseball players. Me and Stan were two baseball players. Fred Cox was the kicker. Minnesota, I think, no, so the Minnesota. Yeah. And then Stan Musial. Then we had what other quarterbacks? Out of that area, Jim Kelly, Bergino, Joe Namath,
All from your town?
not from the town, here, from the local area, you know, within probably about 40-mile radius.
Wow.
So we had some pretty good players. But see, football was really known for Southwestern Pennsylvania.
And
Arnold was a-
nobody here, very few people here in Army.
Yeah, Arnold was from New York. And as a matter of fact, his nephew was at the University of West Virginia, quarterback at the University of West Virginia. And during that time, this is when I had a cousin that was on that Marshall team that went under, you know, was on that team when the plane crashed out. And he, fortunately, at that time, he didn't make a flight. He never lived it down. So it was always suffering from that.
Did you always want to play baseball as opposed to anything else?
No, I wanted to play football. I had to start playing baseball. To be honest with you, baseball was my fourth sport. Football was one. I got picked to play at was All-American high school player out of Denora, played the Big 33, Hershey, Pennsylvania. So Big 33 over there. That's the best players in Pennsylvania usually play the best players in Ohio and Texas. But basketball was number 2. I ran track. Track was pretty much, I set a couple records in track. But baseball, I would run track and play baseball at the same time. If we had a game that day, in the morning, I tracked that afternoon, I would go up in my baseball uniform, I'd high jump, broad jump, run 100, and then I go back down to lunch. But I'm the only high school kid that had lettered in 4 sports for 4 straight years in high school. Out of the north. Usually said he would have, but he said he didn't like to run track.
You know, by the way, that Junior and Stan Musial have the same birthday?
November 21st. Both born November 21st.
Has somebody tested the water in that area?
They wouldn't want to. Right now, it wouldn't be bad now, but back then, the steel mills, I don't think they would. Because they had a big, you know, during the years of 1948, I think they had what they call a small room, where 21 or 40 people died in that city. Small, you know, they all had breathing problems. A lot of them got sick and died.
Musial's father died.
Yeah.
Midnight.
Right, later
years
years.
as a result of.
Or didn't kill you, made you stronger, I guess.
It was a good place to grow up. I mean, it was a fine place to grow up for kids. Small town, everyone knew everyone, so it was a great place to grow up.
Who would be your favorite player, current player to watch?
Current player to watch now, my grandson Makai. So I don't watch these players anymore. I watch him all the time. I coach, he's a pretty good little player.
He's got the right shoes for it. He's got the
Yeah,
Griffey's.
but he got you. Listen, you just tell me you can run me to death with them shoes. I went by them shoes 22 times and he finally got them. Yeah, he was. But now the current player, now I would probably say We's not, you know, watching him as an outfielder, he played right field. So yeah, Stanton. I haven't watched my own down to Florida, but I don't see my. I hear he can hit the ball to the moon.
6'7" and
6'7".
250.
I don't know, 6'7", 250. But God.
Chisel.
I seen guys who were 5'10", 150, 160 get the ball. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, those were little. Ballparks are different, they're tiny.
I'm a Dodger fan, I remember that
Dodger fan.
rivalry. I remember that.
You didn't say that.
That was a great rivalry in the '70s.
I wouldn't ask your question.
Sure, we just say it, though.
But there's one guy, Pete Rose. There was one scratch they couldn't itch, they couldn't scratch. And I never saw a ball player. I've been following baseball since I was 8 in 1959, and I never saw a player who went out in that field and wanted to just win. What was just his most special attribute? What would it be?
His most special attitude, that attitude would be probably his concentration. I mean, Pete had so many things going on sometimes, and you're wondering, he would get 4 hits, and you're saying, I didn't even think about all the stuff that's going on about. But his ability to, I was talking to Pepe this afternoon about, one of the sports writers this afternoon about what Pete said to a lot of us younger folks. And he always told us to play the game as a game. And nobody's going to take those 3 hours away from me that I enjoy doing it. And I don't care what's going on. He said, anything going on off the field, I can handle that. Those 3 hours are mine. And once I get between those white lines, that's what he enjoyed doing. But he played too hard. I mean, you know, he was our catalyst. Big red machine catalyst. When Pete started to do stuff, he get a hit, I get a hit, Morgan get a hit. That would just continue right on down to the line. I mean, there was one year we had 6 guys hit 300, and 2 guys hit no less than 285 and 295 on that team. So, but he was just a strong-minded person. His will to win was, not measured by anything. He wanted to win all the time. And that proved in the game against, the All-Star game when he ran into Fosse. Ray Fosse. And that night, they were supposed to have dinner. I think Ray was still in the hospital.
By the way, just as a little tease, in the forward to the book, which was written by George Foster, he talks about Ken's best attribute, which I'm not going to give away, but since you have the book, you'll be able to read.
And you were also different. Wanted to find out your impression. You played in Cincinnati, which is a great baseball town in the Midwest, New York, West Coast, not quite so much. Can you explain a little bit about what you found the differences between playing there as far as the fans' reactions or anything that struck you?
Well, when I came out of Cincinnati was usually what they call conservative, very conservative, but they're outstanding fans. They know the game in and out. When I came to New York, I had to deal with George Stern. That was a little different. Yeah, well, I don't worry about Phil. We talk all the time, man. He wouldn't even say anything bad about anybody. But we had to deal with George. And George was not afraid to tell the press what he thought. And if you made a mistake, he let the press know. And that everyone else, the Post picked it up all the time. But those were the biggest differences that I found, was just the magnitude of the media here in New York compared to Cincinnati or Seattle or even Atlanta. In Atlanta, we couldn't beat anybody. So, but we were on TV every night. It was America's team. The other thing was fun.
Do you think it was a big advantage to start off in a place like Cincinnati before getting to a pressure level like New York?
No, I don't think so. For me, it didn't matter. I just wanted to play. And what happened, I could have went free agent in '81. I had a chance to go free agent. I could have went to any team I wanted to. And the Reds wanted to make a deal. And they asked me what team would I go to in the American League. And I said the only team I'd go to would be the Yankees. Because they were just coming off of a World Series in '81. And I was promised something I didn't get, but I don't know if Phil said this, but George had promised that they were going to sign Reggie. That was the only reason why I signed here in New York, was that he said they were going to sign Reggie. I was going to hit second in the lineup, Reggie was going to hit 4. So the 4 guys was going to be Randolph, myself, Winfield, and Reggie Jackson. That would have been the start of the first 4 guys.
Wow. 4 Kings.
But that didn't happen because George let Reggie go.
In hindsight, the trade of Perez by the Big Red Machine was the beginning of the decline. Did you sense that at the time?
We kind of sensed it. Well, I told George that because we still had a kid on the bench after the '73 playoffs was the Mets, Dan Dreesen. And Danny was considered one of the best players, in the minor league system. Matter of fact, he was the #1 prospect in the organization at the time. He got called up and there was a mistake made in the '73 playoffs against the Mets. He was playing third, which Dreesen had never played third in his life, to be honest with you. And there was a play at third base, and he just tagged the base instead of tagging the runner because it wasn't a force out. Well, Sparky set him for 5 years. Dreesen never played that much in 5 years. So Sparky fell after the '76 season, and Drees had such an outstanding World Series against the Yankees. He had a couple home runs. He was pretty close to the best for running neck and neck for the MVP. And I think Sparky wanted to make that move and put Drees in first base, which we weren't going to lose much in terms of talent, run production, RBIs, and average. But we lost the attitude of the club. And Doggy was the attitude of the club. I mean, he was the backbone in terms of guys going out there on the field. He made bench play. He made Morgan play. He made Rose play. A lot of times. So Doggy was our backbone because he was the prankster. At the same time, he was the guy that he can drive and run anywhere to win a game at any time, and that's what we respected. But he was the guy that was the backbone of that club. And once that happened, the next year, Drees did the same thing. Drees hit 314, drove in 91 runs, hit 20 home runs or something. Pretty close. What Tony Perez would do. Just the attitudes. That was the biggest thing with that. That's when we lost it. But once they started talking about getting rid of us because they said they couldn't afford us. Starting 8, they said they couldn't afford us. And we weren't making it much. We decided to make $100,000 until I got here in the 6 years of big. So I said they couldn't afford us. They could afford me.
Griffey over here. Kind of piggybacking on what Manesh shared about his memories of growing up with your son, and kind of as evidence as the kicks that are on your grandson's feet. In 1999, 15 All-Stars ago, my dad was sitting back there and I got a chance to go up to Fenway. And All-Star game was one thing, Pedro mowed down the National League for 7 innings, but Home Run Derby, your son now, he got there, hat back, just being the kid, popping them out over Fenway. And we didn't know at the time why McGuire was popping them out. But looking back, 15 years later, 15 All-Stars later, we go, man, he did it the right way. Not because he felt that's what he had to do, it was in his heart. And he left a lasting impression on us that we could pass along, where McGuire left his own lasting impression.
Did you guys really?
And he really transcended. He's the last, even Jeter aside, because Jeter doesn't have shoes that a young man that never saw him play would wear. I really feel like your son is the last pop culture athlete that had that crossover ability that baseball might never get back. And it transcended the sport. It's really amazing.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But did you guys, some of you probably were that doing that home run derby. Did you watch the home run derby? What happened? When they were talking about McGuire hitting the ball out of Fenway Park.
We were somewhere in left field under those Fenway stands, so we didn't get to see the TV
Did
feed.
you notice that what they did? Junior hit a home run in the right field, hit a home run in the center field, hit a home run in the left field in that All-Star game, doing the home run derby.
Right.
Then he went back, he hit one in the left field, hit one in the center field, he hit one in the right field. So he just went around the field. They were hitting balls clean out of the stadium, but he was proving, he said, well, let me do this and see if they notice. And that's what he did. He just went around the field, and he went to left field, right field, center field, or rather, left field, center field, right field, and went back. And then he went back. Nobody knows it but me.
this, that you said earlier that you feel like you've lost your identity, you know, because I'm assuming you guys have, you know, your boys, but I think that, honest to God, you've got, I disagree with that, I think you've got an incredible legacy because of that last name, that I would think everyone in this room would agree that had your son partaken in the PEDs that everyone else in that era did, he'd have 800 home runs. He would have had 800, 900, it would have been untouchable.
He would have did that if he didn't get hurt.
Well, I think, see, and that's the thing, that's the reason. You know, a lot of these guys claim the steroids was to you know, stay injury-free or whatnot. So, you know, he did it clean, he did it the right way. And I'll tell you, you know, my parents, the only reason they let me wear my hat backwards when I was a kid is because I would say, well, Griffey does it, and Griffey's a good player, and he does it the right way. I think that's honestly a lot of your legacy is that you raised a really good kid that could be an amazing role model.
You know why he wore his hat backwards?
The Steinbrenner told him not to.
No. You know, that's another thing about Junior, why he wouldn't come to New York.
Yeah.
It wasn't Steinbrenner. Everyone thinks it was George. It was not Steinbrenner. It was Billy Martin.
Really?
Yeah. That's who Junior would not he refused to come to New York because of Billy Martin. But the reason why he wore his hat backwards is his age, a little younger. And he'd always come into the clubhouse when they got a chance to play father and son game in Cincinnati. And at age 12, all those kids that we had on our team, Perez and Vince and we wouldn't play our kids at 12 years old because they would have beat us. Big Red Machine, they would have beat us. But at that age, he always went out and had his hat, you know, like you're supposed to wear, just like that. And it would always fall down his face. And I would throw a ball, and the hat would fall down, he couldn't see the ball, so he'd get out the way, because he couldn't see anything. So he just said, well, turn it around, now you can see. That's awesome. And that's why he always wore the hat backwards. Not because of disrespect, because he wore my hat all the time, and every time he got somebody threw it, one hat over his eyes, he couldn't see, so he just turned it around.
So he's a pinhead.
Literally, a little head. My head was a little bigger than that.
Could both of you gentlemen talk about how you structured the book and decided how to create this book and collaborate and the structure of it?
You want to elaborate on that?
First of all, it turned out that I got into this very late.
Yeah.
Ken had made a deal with Triumph Books, and someone else was supposed to write it, and he did not deliver it. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the publisher at Triumph, and they are kind of like in a panic. You know, we have this book, it's due to come out, and we need somebody to write it quickly. So I was the guy they chose. I did a lot of work for them. But at the time, Ken was managing in the California League at Bakersfield. So we didn't get together. I think we were supposed to get the book done by the first of the year. And we didn't get together until his season was over.
In September.
It was almost like mid-October when we first met.
Yeah.
And it was really a rush job. But it was, to me, it was great because I had an opportunity to do a lot of research. And Ken wasn't even involved. I mean, he led me to certain things, but things about music, things about the smog that he talked about. I was able to research that, and that was very enlightening to me. It was interesting. And the other stuff about his career, well, I got a computer. I can get all that stuff that way. And we got together about three times.
Three times. Right down in Langhorne, Pennsylvania.
And we talked for, maybe for about 2 or 3 hours each time, and it was all done on tape. And that was enough to produce a book. But he's had very good recall. He remembered things, and I checked him on it. I mean, he gave me a fact. I looked at the computer to see if he was right or wrong. And I would say 95% of the time he was right on the money.
Thanks.
Rich, what was your favorite World Series moment?
Oh, my favorite World Series moment when I scored the winning run in the '75 World Series. Everyone still thinks Carl Fish won the game. Won the World Series. They thought Boston won the World '75 World Series because of that home run. Well, they had to play Game 7. We beat them 3-2.
Would you manage again? Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to manage in the age of Twitter Multiple tattoos.
Managing was fun. I had a chance to manage some kids, pretty good players. Billy Hamilton. Oh, yeah. Singrani, I had out there. I had Chad Rogers. That was the only time, let me tell you, the year I managed those kids was the first time in 11 years that San Jose Giants was beat in the first half. You know, with those kids. I mean, Singrani wouldn't throw a fastball 48, 49 pitches. And my pitching coach would go crazy. He got to throw a breaking ball sooner or later. I said, well, no one's got to hit. Why should he throw a breaking ball? 6, 7 innings. But the biggest thing I found out from management was the pitch count. You know, you get some kids, pitch count is, we started out, we had 80 pitches. Was the total, we started with 80. You know, our starters would go 80 pitches. Some of our pitchers would go, first 2 innings, they'd have 39, 40 pitches. So now we're looking at going into the bullpen. So that's the toughest thing is to manage down the minor leagues about pitch count. Because some of these kids never really get strong. And then when they go to the big leagues, if they're good enough and talented enough to go to the big leagues, you know, the 4th or 5th inning, they're tired. They're wore out. I mean, it makes a big difference in some of these, how they last. If they last sometimes in the big league. They seem like they hit a stone wall as soon as they get to 60, 70 pitches. They're out of gas.
Are we trained to think that that's what?
Well, that's just the way, you know, I mean, you've seen everybody, well, how many Tommy John surgery there was. Our pitcher didn't know what Tommy John surgery was until Tommy John had it. But I mean, you look at J.R. Richards, 300 innings, Tom Seaver. That whole pitching staff probably here in New York, you know, they probably had over 1,000 innings. That just for them. Pitch 300 apiece, just 3 of them. You know, Matt, Kuzma, Seaver, Gentry. Then you had Tuck McGraw coming out of the pit, and usually Tuck would come in 2 to 3 innings instead of 1 hitter. So the difference is totally changed. You know, I wouldn't manage now because I'm too old.
Bus rides don't agree after a
Oh,
while?
bus rides, I don't worry about the bus rides. California is only 4 hours.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
That's the only league I'd manage in would be California. 4 hours is all I can stand.
New York Kennedy, 45-minute drives.
So listen, I played in the Eastern League and it was 15-hour drive.
Oh,
That was from Canada to West Haven, Connecticut to Reading, Pennsylvania. So rides in the double A still has some long rides. I think that's the only leagues, double A leagues usually the longest bus ride you get.
That was in the Southern League.
Yeah. Southern League, they still do this up. We had, when we were in Chattanooga, they used to travel from Chattanooga to West Tennessee, which was 16 hours.
John, I love the fact that your book addresses fatherhood, because I think baseball is inherently a father-son game. And as my son can attest, I had him playing before he was even in diapers, really. And it's been great to kind of share the sport with him. And but it's also been a challenge at times to kind of not put too much of my own stuff onto him. My own desires for him to be a major league ball player. And your son became one.
Right.
How did you regulate your fantasy of that happening and kind of keep that in check?
Well, it started when I was here in New York mostly. It was around 12 when I got traded to the Yankees. And during the summers, he was playing on a travel team, you know, playing travel ball and all that. And on weekends, you know, he kind of did some stuff. His mother would send him to be in New York. And I asked him what he wanted to do. And he said he wanted to be a major league player. So I was, since I was in the game, I may as well teach him all the tricks of the trade. So what I did was I took him down to Yankee Stadium, down underneath the batting cage, and he took batting practice. But I wouldn't tell him when I was throwing. I throwing fastballs, curveballs, sliders, changeups. I wanted to find out how well he could make adjustments. By the age of 14, I couldn't strike him out, so I knew I had something special. And I was left-handed, and that's all he seen was a left-handed pitcher, me. You know, so left-handers never bothered him. He probably had more problems with right-handers than left, but that's all he seen was left-handed. But the mental aspect of it was getting him mentally strong, making those adjustments. Understanding, for me, a lot of these young kids, you know, they come into the league and they don't understand what baseball is actually about, why certain things happen. For instance, if you're not hitting well or playing well, and all of a sudden you see yourself sitting on the bench, that didn't happen when they were playing high school ball or college. Okay, and now they see themselves, they get benched. They're wondering why. They can't handle that aspect of that. So you try to teach them, if situations come up, baseball is day in, day out every day. It's a grind. We play 162 games, 140 in the minor leagues. When you get to certain leagues, you play over 140 games. And you got 162 when you get to the big leagues. You're playing baseball every day. And the difference is you can be a GOAT to a hero, 15 minutes or less sometimes. But you got to understand to stay at a high level mentally to play the game. And you got to do that every day. You just can't go out there and say, I'm just going to be half the day and half the day. No. Baseball is day in, day out, every day. It's a grind, and you have to be mentally prepared to do it. And the mental aspect of the game is probably the hardest part of some of the young kids to maintain. Because you know you're going to get tired. You're going to get bored. I mean, I watched some of the kids that come out of high school and college, and they had never played 22, 23 games straight. You know, they're always asking, I need a break. I got to come out the game. Give me a rest today. They're asking me, and I can't afford to give a rest, because if I give a rest now, I get calls from the front office. Why is he not playing? You know, so that's the toughest thing to do.
But was it expected of you when you were growing up that you would be playing at that rate, at that pace, at that frequency?
I was not, I was fortunate that I didn't understand the game that much. When I was fortunate that I wanted to play every day. So I didn't care if I was out there. I played little grades in Florida. We played 70 games. And it was anywhere between 111, 115, 120 degrees. We played 12 o'clock every day. We didn't have night games. We played 12 o'clock every day. We didn't have any days off. So the days off, you were out, but you had to learn how to make adjustments. You know, it's an outfield, you can rest. All you do is stand up. Sometimes. But the mental aspect of the game is probably the toughest. And I would teach you things like, what do you expect the owner to think when you're playing? Okay, so if you go over 12, all right, you're not hitting well. Do you think the manager or the owner wants you out there and you're struggling? But if you're staying consistent, day in, day out, every day, you're doing well, you know the owners, you're going to play it, no matter what. So that's how I, myself, kept myself going, is that I had to play at a high level every day. I didn't want to sit on the bench. I don't want the owners thinking that, you know, in order to do that, if you play that well every day, you're going to get rewarded. See, you know, I broke in and we made $500 a month. I think when I got to AAA, I was making $1,100 a month. So the difference now, some of these guys are triple or double, they're making so much money, you know. So, but I just always taught him that you got to think what the front office thinking, how they're managing, how you think they would manage your clubs, and then you go play your game as well. They can't bother you. They can't bother if you're hitting 300, doing what you're supposed to do, making catches. But if you're doing it, if you're fluctuating up and down, and you got a week that you haven't got to hit, you think they would put you out there?
But how badly did he want it?
Oh, he wanted bad. He wanted bad because he just wanted to be better than his dad. And that's how he looked at it. If I get to the big leagues, my dad didn't get there for 5 years. I'm going to try to get there soon. I didn't know it was gonna take you 15 minutes. My goodness, that was it. I was scared me. You can't do so fast.
Is it, you haven't asked a question, right? All right, so we're gonna have your question, and that's gonna be the last question, because the All-Star game is starting. He won the MVP award in 1980, and he's one of the legendary baseball writers to ever live. Just for you guys to know both of those things.
There's only one father and son who won an MVP in the world, an All-Star MVP. That's me and Jimmy.
That's great.
So,
So, there you go.
wait, got a question.
Yeah.
So when Junior was 6 years old, when he was first starting in baseball, did he ever like not want to play, or did he just want to be like?
He wanted to play all the time. He didn't want to play football. He got hit one time. He didn't want to play football. Sorry, that's all. I mean, he played well. He was a wide receiver. Played, as a matter of fact, his junior in high school, they won the state championship in Mobile High School in Cincinnati. And he weighed about 165. He was about 6 foot. He came back the next year. He was 6'2", weighed about 180. And his coach was recognized. He walked in the office and said, "You're retired." So that's what he did. He retired. And he never played football or anything else. He was a good basketball player too. He wanted to play baseball because that's all. I think it's because that's the only. It's all we seen him play. When I showed him articles of what I did in high school and stuff, he said, "That's not you. You never played football." I had to prove it.
So that's where we're gonna end it up. Feel free to hang out. For those listening to the podcast, again, the book, Big Red, published by Triumph Books, written by Ken Griffey and Phil Pepe.